The following podcast contains movie spoilers, unpopular opinions, outdated pop cultural references, and occasional f***ing language. Listener discretion is advised. In 3, 2, 1.
And rolling sound, quiet.
Speak.
Good day, good world. You're listening to Subgenre, a podcast about the movies. I'm your host, Josh Dasal. On Subgenre, we go after films outside the major categories, and for this, our last cinematic foray of Season 1, we stay below the thermals in the turbulent and terrific subgenre of submarine movies. In today's episode, part 1 of 2, we tackle a film whose myth, legendary stature, and quite frankly, total runtime have only grown throughout the years. It stars the icy smooth German with a jaw so angular it could be a T-square, Jürgen Prochnow, in a panic-inducing tour de force by director Wolfgang Petersen. Take our picture later, Werner. We'll all have beards when we return. This is the one, the only masterpiece, Das Boot, the director's cut. And joining me via Zoom from the City of Angels, Los Angeles, to get specific about this film school staple is, coincidentally enough, a former film school compatriot of mine. He is a screenwriter, he's a film studio guy with a real office on a real lot, and he's my go-to person most of the time for insightful and really baritone takes on the important films I've seen, and maybe more I haven't but really pretend to. It's Steve Baumgartner. How you doing, Steve?
I'm good, Josh. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm very excited to be here.
I am super excited to have you here, and the main reason, there's a few reasons, I mean, it's Das Boot, but one of the big reasons I'm excited to have you here is when I first thought about this show, when I conceived this show, when this was the tiny embryo in the belly of my mind, the person I saw me sitting and doing this here with was Steve Baumgartner. So finally to have you here, I'm happy to do that.
The pressure's on, man. But thank you. I was really flattered to be asked, and especially for this movie, because it definitely stands above submarine movies as a genre, I would say. This is sort of the U-boat movie.
It really is. And I swear to you, I said more than once in this film. It does bring that from the gut up. So you said this is sort of the submarine film. I would go a step further and be a little bit more specific and say, I think, to me, this is the submarine film for people of a certain age, people that went to school, film school, like worked in video stores in the 90s. Like, this is not just the submarine movie, but one of the movies for us. Would you say that?
I wouldn't put myself in that us, but yeah, it's got a fantastic reputation, which has endured.
The other reason I'm happy to have you here is because, and I may have said this more than once in the course of the 5 minutes we were talking before we got on the air, but my knowledge of film extends so far, and it covers a certain range. Your knowledge of film extends so far, and it tends to cover a range of film that I don't necessarily always know enough about. And so I'm excited to have that kind of stack of opinions come to this show.
Everybody's a Venn diagram, you know? Nobody has the exact same tastes and exposures. I'll do my best to cover things that you might not know, but please do the same for me.
Speaking of two parts working as a whole, normally on Subgenre, we would do single episodes about single films. That was the intention with Das Boot for about 5 minutes until I really got a sense of how much there is to talk about here. And so, everybody, we are splitting this discussion about Das Boot into 2 episodes, the one you are listening to now and the one you will listen to after now. Please make sure that you continue on with part 2 of this, which we were probably also going to call episode 9. And yeah, that's how we're going to work this. All right, so Das Boot. Is it Das Boot or Das Boot?
A friend of mine did do military time in Germany, and I believe he had it as Boot.
As Boot.
Or that's me trying to like mush the vowels together so that nobody can really call me out.
Perfect. Well, you can apologize to the German speakers. I'll apologize to the English speakers. I will also muddle names and words, and that's just part of the game. Let's take this film that neither of us can seem to pronounce correctly, and I think maybe the rest of the world as well, and let's set it up for the people. Das Boot, what are we working with here?
Sure. Well, Das Boot sort of started because it was a 1973 novel by Lothar Gunther Buchheim.
There's one of those names.
Thanks to the DVD commentary, I think I might have gotten that right. And he was an embedded war correspondent on a German U-boat during World War II. So you might catch a character in there who is in the same situation. There were several attempts to get this movie made in Hollywood, or by Hollywood. They had even brought over a director to Germany for a year, and he couldn't work it out. They tried again and didn't happen. So the project returned to West Germany. And Wolfgang Petersen, director of a few theatrical films and a lot of television movies, was ready and waiting because he knew that this project was happening, but he was thinking, why is this very German story being handled by the Americans?
Correct me if I'm wrong. This, at least by what I can tell, this was the biggest thing he had done, German or otherwise, when this came along.
As far as I can tell, yes.
As far as I can tell, right.
His previous stuff was not on my radar until actually I started reading up on this movie a little bit.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm in boot. Excuse me. I'm in the same boot.
So Wolfgang Petersen got a hold of it, and he cast an actor who he had worked with numerous times in the past, Jürgen Prochnow. This was not their first time together, as I believe their fourth. The movie premiered in West Germany in September 1981, and according to Petersen, the movie cost about $20 million US at the time, which back in 1981 was a big budget movie for America.
Oh, sure.
And for Germany, it was one of the all-time biggest tickets as far as the budget goes. A lot of that budget went to the set, which is, as you know, and people have seen it know, a painstaking recreation of the World War II U-boat interior. It's accurately proportioned. All the details match the real thing. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know this, but when in Munchen, you can go to Bavaria Film Studios, take their tour, and walk that set. That's still an attraction there.
Okay, I got to go then. Not that I needed a reason to go, but if I can walk the Das Boot set, yeah, sure.
Nobody's acting in front of a green screen in this movie, which I think is really important because inside the boat.
I was going to say, there are a couple of shots I would dispute that on, but yes, inside the boat, yes.
And I think that really serves the authenticity of the performances. In addition to the boat itself, this movie got more authenticity because it was shot in sequence for the most part over the course of a year or so.
That doesn't happen often.
No.
For a lot of reasons, but that definitely doesn't happen often.
Yeah. If you see the actors not only getting hairier and being more worn down, that's built into the shooting schedule.
That's why I look that way. It's built into my shooting schedule. I just get hairier and more worn down. It's purposeful, folks.
The movie paid off financially. It was, at the time, it got the widest release in Germany of any German film, and it set box office records there. But there was also some controversy over whether or not the film was properly condemnatory of the German military movement of the time. That's really euphemistic. I don't mean it to be. I just don't want to misspeak on exactly what the charges were.
Sure.
So between the popularity of the movie and the controversy, when the movie made its way to the United States in February 1982, the tagline was something like, the most talked about movie in Germany is about to come to America, or something like that. And the movie also, I think, got a little bit of extra attention because it was the first release by Triumph Films, which was Columbia Pictures' specialty arm that dealt with foreign pictures, usually foreign language. And that special handling actually paid off. It did about $11 million in the States, which today comes out to $34 million, which isn't gigantic. I think, like, if you look at 2019, that puts it in the category of the Liam Neeson snowplow movie, for example, which I haven't seen. I'm not dissing it. But the thing that was sort of unique about this movie is that it was a foreign language movie in the United States that hit it big. 4 years earlier, there had been La Cage aux Folles, which did a little bit better. And there wasn't anything that really came close to Das Boot for another 6 years when Cinema Paradiso came in. So basically, this became the foreign language movie that your average American was probably most aware of in the 1980s.
Strangely, I think we'll probably talk more about this later, but there are various versions of Das Boot that got released. Theatrically, I think there was both a German and an English language dubbed version. And in the United States, it was the German version that did better.
Yeah, there was an article saying that basically, we're so excited, we're going to put this movie into English, and it's going to open up this audience that would not see a foreign language movie. We're going to put it on all these screens. And as I recall, that audience didn't show up. The people who wanted to see it went to see it in German.
You know, you got to see it in the original German. That's what I hear. But it did well in the United States, so well, in fact, that it was nominated.